Morning everyone. What we've got in the shed today is a SIMCA, and I know nothing about them. It's British, I think. I'll give you a bit of a look around in a minute. It's here for an exhaust. The factory one is rusted off about at the driver's feet. The owner of this car is doing it up, not like a restoration, but just sort of getting it back on the road for club reg, which is sort of just like a limited registration here in Victoria. So I'll have a look around and I'll learn with you, because like I say, I don't really know anything about them, but we'll have a look over it, see what we're doing and go from there. Okay, so this is it. It's a SIMCA. It's got little pushrod 4-cylinder, downdraft carburetor, pretty flash. I can't see any identification plates on it. It's a little sedan, sort of looks like a Hillman. It's that same sort of era, I think. Interesting little grille design on it, which I kind of like. It looks like that electric car off The Simpsons that can't go very fast or very far. This is the interior, right-hand drive. Pretty neat. The owner's had it like he drove it here, and it runs and starts pretty nicely. Just nice little pieces like this, very of the time, I think. The tail lights it had on it were very fogged up, and they're basically impossible to get. So the owner had a local bloke 3D scan and 3D print new ones, which I think is really cool. They look great. Be interesting to see how they go with UV over time, but I don't know, it's pretty cool that that's the state of the art at the moment, is we can make parts for cars like this where otherwise, I don't know what you'd do. That's a very unique tail light design. So it's got a bit of damage here. This is, I'm not addressing any of this. I'm just doing a stainless steel exhaust. So we'll get this thing up in the air and I'll show you what we're doing. All right, I've got it up in the air and I've got the driver's front wheel removed, because the exhaust comes out here, down, and then you can see that's where it's rusted off there, and shoots off towards the diff. I don't know why the exhaust comes out the wheel arch. To me, there's room for it to come, like that's the manifold flange there. There is room for it to come down here. Behind this little tin shield, you've got, I'll have to fix that. You've got the brake master cylinder. So perhaps it's a heat shielding thing, I don't know, but that's a hex-headed screw. Focus. Like that's probably some weird old Whitworth thing. God, I don't even know what was going on there. Oh, okay. Righto. Well, the heat shield's off. We'll just say that was so I could have a bit more room to work, let's say. Well, old cars, eh? Anyway, so that's the plan. This is 1.5 inches, and I'm replacing it with 1.5 inches. There's no need to go anything bigger. At a guess, I'd say this thing makes about 30 horsepower. Honestly, it's you could go 2-inch, but you're just wasting time and money, and it would look silly and probably sound silly. So I'll take you over to the bench and show you the parts I've got. Okay, so these are the parts I've got. We're going all 1.5 inch, all stainless. That's a stainless 1.5 inch flex joint. Stainless 1.5 inch. These are called 0 tangent bends, because other bends will have a bit of straight pipe hanging off each end, which makes them better for holding and clamping and mocking up, and you see them a lot in like dairy and food production, that sort of stuff. They're probably easier to use and get good results. I like these 0 tangent because I think they look better as a finished product. So we got those. Got these 1.5 inch stainless V-bands, which I'm not thrilled with these because they're not really 1.5 inch. They're bigger than they should be. That gap there, I don't like that. That should be a neat fit, but we can't always get the parts we want, and I've never really dealt with 1.5 inch parts before. So this is a stainless muffler, but it is 2 inch because I couldn't get one in 1.5 inch. So I've bought this, which is just a reducer, which slips in there. That's how these mufflers generally work, is the pipe is larger than the diameter, so you can slip your pipe in. So I've got that concentric, and I've got one eccentric reducer. This is a center offset. I like to go center offset because it gives you options. These are not directional, so when it comes time to put the muffler into wherever it's going to go, this gives you options. If you go offset, offset, doesn't matter which way you turn it, it's sort of, you got the same options, whereas this way at least you could come in from the center of this side or either side, and yeah, you get the idea. So these are the parts I'll be using. I've got some 1.5 inch stainless tube as well. So let's get removing this old pipe and start making a new one. So I was gonna try to undo the exhaust flange bolts from above, but they're not really accessible. So that's the flange there, and the studs must come out of the manifold here. There's 3 of them. I soaked them in yield last night, but they're not accessible from above. So I'll put the car back up in the air and I'll just get me extensions in there, and hopefully they don't fight. This is where jobs can blow out. One of those studs could snap or pull out or just do something shitty, and then all of a sudden it goes from just building an exhaust to pulling that exhaust manifold off, extracting a broken stud, and then finding a new inlet exhaust gasket, and then one of these studs will get stuck in the head, and so these jobs can blow out real quick with stuff like this. So it's got to be done carefully, and hopefully I don't mess this up, but let's see. All right, so there they are in there, 1, 2, 3. I'll try to film this, but we'll see how we go. It's tight. I do have a 3/8 wobble bit. It's good. Didn't think I had one of these. we are. Oh my god, that's tight. Oh, I don't like that. Oh, yes. Oh. Oh. So, I know I crap on about this stuff, but this is Yield. I'm not sponsored, I wish I was, because it's so bloody expensive, but it is just invaluable, priceless. Like I say, I soaked these last night, and they all came off great. They looked like shit. I was pretty worried about them. And just as a bit of a courtesy to the customer, I've gone through underneath his car and just sprayed a lot of the exposed nuts and bolts that I could see, because he's gonna have to undo them at some point. And this stuff's great. I suspect it's got like a little bit of a weak acid in it, because I remember on my old Mazda Ute, my B1600, I had it up on the hoist one night, and I just went around with this, and just like I said, I sprayed everything I could see, and a lot of them were just sort of like, you couldn't even barely discern the threads anymore. They were sort of filled in with mud and rust and all of that sort of stuff. So I just sort of sprayed them all, and then a couple of days later I checked them and they looked like threads again. So I sort of think this etches as well as penetrates and lubricates. Yeah, nothing comes close to this, in my opinion. So we've got those off, which have probably been there for, I don't know, 30 years, who knows. So now we can pull this exhaust off. I'll cut off that triangular flange, whatever it looks like. Let's see if I can get it off. Okay, so that came off pretty easy. There is a fossil of a gasket in there. I'm not going to touch it. It can stay there. So this is what we're left with. Backing ring and a little flange setup that goes inside. I'm going to cut this off here and reuse this. It's not ideal, but it will be some unusual piece that's not worth trying to buy or recreate. So although I am building a fully stainless exhaust, the first 20 mil of it will be mild steel, so forgive me. But this is off now and we can start in earnest on the build. So when you're building an exhaust, tack everything. Don't weld anything out until the very end. So this is my spool piece, we'll call it, to go to the existing manifold. In stainless you get what's called sugaring, is what a lot of people call it. what it is oxidization. Stainless is a reactive metal. So if it gets to that temperature range, I can't remember what the temperature range is, or above, it will start to oxidize, and you get the sugaring. So you can just sort of see that little lumpy piece in the bottom there. We want to avoid that, so you want to keep your tacks small and fast, and the temperature as low as you can get away with. And you certainly don't want to weld out something like this without back purging. I've got a back purge kit I'll show you later in the video. But the other thing about stainless is kind of counterproductive to what I just said, is that it moves quite a bit under welding. So you do have to tack them very well, but you don't want to overdo it and cause sugaring. In this style of weld, which is like a lap joint, I suppose, where the V-band is going over the pipe, it isn't as critical, but the rest of the welds I'll do on this exhaust are going to be butt joints without any filler. So I've made quite a few exhausts this way, and until I have one break, I tell you, I'm going to keep doing it. They work really, really well. It takes a bit of time to get your fit up perfect, and it does have to be perfect. But once you get the hang of it, you can fusion weld, butt weld stainless together, and you get really nice results, and they're really, really strong. And with proper back purging, you get perfect penetration, and it looks as if it's been welded on the inside as well as the outside. So stainless, I love it and I hate it, but it's good for exhausts. So what we're going to go do is bolt up this spool piece and the first bend of the exhaust, and start planning tacking from there. One other thing about exhaust builds, and other builds as well, but especially with exhausts, is take the time when you're mocking it up. So like I'm going to bolt this flange back onto the car. Take the time to do it properly. If you just spin the nuts on by hand and then go, that's good enough, quite often you'll find that it really isn't. It looks fine, but it might be kicked or cocked or too far out. So don't cheap out on mock-up stage. It's really important that when you're mocking it up, it is where it's going to be. It's a pain in the ass because you end up taking it on and off dozens of times throughout a build, so after a while you start getting a bit relaxed about it. But that is something you mustn't let yourself do. The devil's in the details here, and one of the details is mock-up has to be just so. So we'll head back over to the car, get this bolted up, and start building it out. So I don't like any of this. I want so currently exhaust sort of coming out like that. I really want it tucked in as close as I can get to the body line, because on the old exhaust the wheel had been rubbing on it. I want to avoid that. So I might have to get this bend, and it's currently a 90. I might have to make it more than a 90, which is not something I take great amount of pleasure in doing, but we are going to have to do it, I think. So we'll get into that. Alright, so I've trimmed this, try to hold it. So I've trimmed both sides of this 90, so now it's not a 90. And hopefully this works. Oh. I like that. So that's good. That's it's really tied in with the body. The wheel's out about here somewhere. So I think if I go a little bit further forward, it gets it sort of behind that turn radius. So I like that. I'll undo that, I'll tack that together, and then we can start building out from here, which this is how the whole thing goes. It's mark, tack, rinse, repeat. I'll be putting the flex joint in around here somewhere. I like to have the flex joint close to the front. They're good for expansion, one thing, probably not really a big deal on this car, but what they're great for is if you reverse into, I don't know, a drain or a gutter, or if you drive over something and you don't have the ground clearance and your exhaust takes a hit, the flex joint takes the hit instead of all that energy being transferred up your exhaust into your exhaust manifold to your head through the studs, just all of it. So it just takes that out of it. So the closer to the front, the better, because if you have it right at the back, you can still hit your exhaust at the front here and then it's not doing anything. So once I get a bit of free air, I'll put the flex joint in, and then I'll probably put another V-band. I like to have my exhausts somewhat modular. They're easier to take off and on if they're not one huge length. And being that they're V-bands, it's just one bolt, no gaskets, so you don't have to worry about taking exhaust apart and having to find a new or replace your gasket. So I'll get this chap off, we'll get this tacked on, and we'll go from there. Okay, tack up is complete. So from in there, comes down, through the flex joint, through our muffler here, down the line, we've got an exhaust hanger there, then a V-band, up and over the diff, and then a bit of elbows going on there, and out the back. And we've got another hanger just there. Now it's all just tacked up at the moment. That's how far the exhaust sticks out. So now I've just got to disassemble everything and weld it. got all the bits together. They're all fully purge welded. Went pretty well. So we'll throw it all up there now, bolt it up, start the car and see if there's any leaks. I don't think there will be. But yeah, give us half an hour and we should have this together. Alright, the little car is done. You can see the stainless starts there. Goes down there. And pokes out there. Starts beautifully. A bit surprising, to be honest. Idles just right. It's actually got a bit more bark than I was expecting. It's a pretty big muffler, but it will bed in. So it sounds pretty good.